Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and thank you for stopping by once again. Let me get things up here. Okay, I have a few things I want to run through today. First, it's Mother's Day in Panama. So happy Mother's Day to everybody. I know it's in different days in different countries, but this is when we have it. And it is a big day, probably the second biggest gift-giving day of the year, only to Christmas. And although I said it'd be a bit more modest because it's only for mothers and prospective mothers, maybe grandmothers and the like. Yet there it is, and it's been a very busy day. And now is not a good time to try to get a reservation at a restaurant. They're really full. It's the dry season. It's moving in. It's actually a meteorological event, and it comes over a period of some days. And it just happens to come around this time in December. So the rain already is less than it was, say, a month ago, for sure. And a beautiful day today, just gorgeous day. And we've had a couple of those, and I think we'll have some more coming down the road. But we were told that we will have some dry season. We'll have a little bit more rain in it than normal, which means nothing. I mean, it's just very little, but it's nice. It's good to have. We're already full at the reservoirs for the canal, and in fact, the gates of the major dam that provides the reservoir had to open up to let water out because we were getting very close to the red line, so to speak, and that it's the exact opposite of where we were a couple years ago. Now, the good news in this is that we've got plenty of water that's going to get us through this coming season. It appears that we're going to have some more rain than we would normally have during the dry season, so that'll help as well. And if we have a reasonably decent rainy season next year, well, it'll be a while before we get really hit again. But we're thankful for what we have, and we're hopeful for the future. But in the meantime, we're busy trying to get the next reservoir off the ground and moving and started. You don't do these sorts of things overnight, but they're well underway. I mean, they've been underway for a while. So it's a terrific amount of work, though. And a lot of other projects, as I discussed before, along the canal. It's going to be a busy year. Shipping is up, but as the Canal Authority pointed out, said a lot of this has to do with the tariffs war. And it's just people were rushing to get goods in from Asia into the east coast of the U.S. and the Gulf Coast on up to Canada as quickly as they could for fear of greater tariffs being declared. It's been sort of a game for them to decide when is the right time, and each country is different, of course. So we've had a higher than normal rate. We set a new record, I guess, for October. But the key point is that as the authority says, just relax. After Christmas is over with, there's going to be a decline in this sort of activity. This is a little bit unusual. At least we think there is. So we're fine, though. We're doing just great. We're at max, basically 38 passages that we allow for safety's sake per day, and that's happening. Meanwhile, we'll mention it in passing. Venezuela is Venezuela, and you all know, I'm sure, that the United States has seen fit to send down quite a military task force. They've been here about a month now. I mean, the naval task force. They're running out of the air bases in Puerto Rico, which makes sense since that's American territory. But it's quite an affair. Apparently, it has not worked out the way they'd anticipated. I assume there's a plan B or whatever. We don't know. We can't tell. We just move on and hope for the best because it's a difficult situation. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to discuss it here because it's not our business at this point in time. If we have another large arrival of Venezuelan refugees, then of course it becomes our concern as well. But there is nothing we can do about that. So for the moment, we'll see how it unfolds. We have plenty to keep us busy domestically. Now, the one thing that more in the real estate section is not mentioned as commonly as it was in the past. in the early years when everything was open. North Americans in particular just came down with much more money than they had anticipated for the sale of their home, which was rising rapidly in price. And here there was much less inventory, and the housing available wasn't as nice as it is today. We have lots of beautiful housing today, but back then it was like perfect. Now they could buy all sorts of things, and people bought and they also built homes and so on and so on. We don't do much of the building of homes now. These are basically the people who do this, that come in and do it themselves, and with some assistance. But it comes to the purchase of land. I don't really think that's a good idea for people who have no background here, or even elsewhere in Latin America. It's not necessarily going to be perfect. It's better than not having any, but it's not because where something horrible is happening. Land is treated differently, laws are different, and so on. So you need to know it. Then there's all the multitude of other things. You have to come to know the contractors. I tell people, if you're going to come down for land and you're looking for something large, you're going to have some help. And you need to talk to a number of contractors. You need to talk to people they've worked for, if you're calling in people to work for you. If you're doing it on your own, then you have to be out there at the hardware stores, being sure in your area where you're going to be that you can get what you need, and if you can't, be aware of where you're going to have to go, how you're going to get it shipped down or whatever. It is much more complex, and I suspect more expensive, really, for a single home than to simply buy one, given the fairly large inventory we have. Now, if you're talking about a personal estate, something massive, you're into a different ballgame. That's different, okay. But when you're talking about a simple home, you're welcome. We have people who have been very successful at doing it themselves, and others who've just found one frustration after another, and they weren't ready for the level of involvement. And you got to be involved. So I don't think in terms of the individual that unless you're younger and very enthusiastic and really ready to work, I wouldn't recommend it. Certainly, it is a major task, and it's not something that's done lightly, just because of the things that people want. If they're not available here, they need to have them shipped in. They have to have this or that. They don't understand, how property title, how it's done. We've got title. Like any other institution, we have insurance for title. We have all this sort of stuff, but we have other land too that isn't titled, but has somebody who has a person who's lived on it, who's poor as a rule and doesn't have title to it, but has lived on it for decades, or his family raised his family, her family there. They will have a certain right to that land. It's called rights of possession. It is not satisfactory. Don't even think about it. If you're down here, you take your time, but it's unnecessary, and it's usually a problem to try to find one of these pieces of land that are still not titled and is worthwhile to build on, and then the legal problems involved, and there are a whole series of them. So, if you need to go that route, it's very hard for me to recommend it, so I am not the right one to talk to in that regard. You need a good lawyer. But in any event, what we're boiling down to for people, if people have a 3 to 5 year view, fine. Most people coming down, most of the people I talk to here, are coming down just for themselves. They're looking for a house, an apartment, a condo unit, something that fits their particular needs, and that's it. And so, land's land. But there are occasionally people I deal with, they don't always come through this particular venue, through retirement wave or whatever. They will come independently, although I've had others come from retirement wave. They are people with more money, and some are investors, and they're thinking in terms of investing in land. You can do it, but you really have to get outside the box if you're going to get anything done that you're going to have any decent chance at appreciation. The market here is very focused. I'm a super critic of the real estate market here when it comes to this sort of thing. And it's starting to crumble because the old style of doing things is crumbling as the older generation passes on. People my age, 80 years old, we die. So as a result, we're moving on. But also because of other nationalities coming in and bringing with them substantial sums to invest in themselves. In a nutshell, most of these people see a very bright future for Panama in the years to come. And they're not tied into every day-to-day struggle in the political scene internationally, globally, wherever, regionally, and so on, or their home country. They're focused on developing something here because they think it is it's the stable market. That's what it boils down to. I mean, other markets, other Latin American markets can claim stability, but very few can show it and demonstrate it in the sense that we have. And every time we have a demonstration here, which is perfectly legal and it's set up with the police and everybody knows what they're doing, and it's a democracy and it's allowed, somebody somewhere says, riots in Panama City. We had some big demonstrations in the past, but riots? No. Wrong. We don't kill people. They don't get shot. We don't burn down buildings. We don't attack the police. We don't. No. Latin America's got some really hot spots. A lot of them, unfortunately, but not here. And people here are proud of their heritage, basically, of being able to handle things without having to erupt. And when we did have the big demonstrations for anti-corruption demonstrations in 23, that was really significant. I mean, that was different than your standard basic, say, a labor union or somebody else getting very excited. It was a genuine outpouring of feeling among the people. And it led to a massively different National Assembly being elected. So we know it had impact. The people really had to, if you've been around for anything at the time, you know that of the 71 members of the last National Assembly before this one, 61 ran for re-election, and in the elections prior to this, the great majority of them would be expected to win again. Well, they didn't. The great majority of them lost. I can't remember now whether it was 14 or 17 of them actually got elected, but the others didn't, and that came as a big surprise. But it has really sobered people up, and people are really working better together than they have in the past, despite having very serious disagreements and airing them publicly and not making any sense about it. So there's a sense underneath that we're all pulling together to get through this particular period, and that's a positive thing. So now if you were in the larger scale thing, the large personal estate, or where you have a development, you want to actually set up a project or whatever, I work with some people like that once in a while, but I don't do that through Retirement Wave, and I don't pitch it here. Simple as that. Because I don't expect people here to have that kind of money and that kind of desire. Plus, I'll be honest, folks, most people these days, they're looking for the quick buck. You know, they want to know how soon they'll make double their money, and they're looking for somebody who says, well, you should be able to at least get a minimum of a 10% return in your investment per year indefinitely, and some people will say 15. And watch out for someone who says 20. But they'll promise the world to you. You need to actually settle down and get a real look at the market. The market's different. There are more than one market. It's divided into several. Things are possible here to be done. It's not foolish to come and look, but what is foolish to do is to come, and just because you've done it 100 times in other countries, or in the U.S. or in Spain or one thing or another, doesn't mean it's going to work that way here. So you need to get to know the market and the people in it. It's a great market, and there's great potential here. But everything's out of balance right at the moment, and that's what we're seeking, and I try to push for that in the community as a whole, a more balanced approach to it. So there's that. That sort of development is much bigger scale and requires a team and so on and what have you. So I don't expect anyone to be, excited about that. But I just don't recommend buying land and building your own unless that's your dedication and you have a YouTube channel that you expect to take off, whatever, that's fine. I mean, more power to you. I'm very, very impressed by nomadic movement, which is one of those that have done very well in Chiriquí, as so many of us know here who followed them, and others. The key point here, though, is to really be dedicated to that. Otherwise, sales go on. People are hoping that they get some sales coming this winter season up north and so on. And sometimes stability sounds good. So come on down and take a look. When I would tell people also, when I do my analysis and I talk to people otherwise, I'm coming to the conclusion that basically is come sooner rather than later. If stability and stability and safety and a future that you can focus on real issues instead of political issues all the time. I don't care where you're from. Don't think that I'm talking to Americans. This is a global site, and I hear from plenty of Europeans on the subject, and Asians, and God knows, other Latin Americans. So I'm saying to everybody, basically, is that take a deep breath, and if you need to get away from that, don't bring it with you. Keep it as little as possible, and let go of it once you get here as soon as you can, and come and take a look and see. And it doesn't make any difference to me who you voted for or whether you even can vote in your society. That's not the issue for me at all. The issue is whether or not this country works for you and you work for it, and it makes a good match. One way to find that out is to come on down. And usually this is, if you're up further up north, or this is a good time of year coming along here for a visit to Panama. So on that cheerful note, I wish you the best and look forward to seeing you the next time.